all of you. My staff is here. I have a staff. Isn't that nice? They're really just my friends. They work for almost nothing, actually, which is really great if you're young and don't have a mortgage, right? And some of them live at my house, too, which makes it even cheaper. Anyway, I didn't know much about the Sandpiper line. You know, I'm probably just like the rest of you. I was, just going about my business. And I don't hate all pipelines. I don't want you to think that I just hate pipelines. I don't hate pipelines. We've lived with them our whole lives, Pipelines up here and there, they have to move stuff around. I get that, I just got a real problem with what's going on now. It's kind of extreme, and it's really worrisome. And it's not just that it happens to be kind of in my backyard. It's that what is going on is really extreme in terms of what's getting extracted, where it's going, and who's benefiting. So I wanted to kind of make it a little easy on me to start with, and I'm going to show you a really short video. It's 7 minutes. It'll kind of explain what we did. And what I want to say is, Mike, you want to give the wave, the princess wave? That's Michael. Michelle, princess wave. Thomas. They were all with me, and we rode our horses. Some of you might have seen us if you were like driving really slow or trying to get around us. But I'm going to share a 7-minute video which explains kind of why we're concerned. And then I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about the Sandpiper. Okay? There's a beauty in the breath of horses. Fall morning's breath seen in the air, the smell and sound of horses. We rode our horses from the headwaters of the Mississippi River here on our reservation, along the proposed route of a new oil pipeline which would cross our reservation. It was the third of a series of rides on pipelines. We're not protesters, we're protectors. That's who we are. And this we call the Triple Crown of pipeline rides. Those rides took us on the Alberta Clipper proposed expansion route to the proposed Keystone XL route in the Dakotas, where riders from the White Earth Reservation joined with the Lakota to ride between Mombly and Dakini on the Cheyenne River Reservation. So it was that 15 riders braved some harrowing terrain, a land littered with 100,000 dead cattle from a freak September blizzard, and rode the proposed Keystone route.
Watching our spirit helpers near 500 years of genocide. Who's left to hear? Who's left to hear?
And then we came home to our own reservation, where a new pipeline is proposed to cut near our largest wild rice lake. That pipeline will carry fracked oil from the Dakotas. Much of this comes from the homelands of the Arikara, Mandan, and Hidatsa people, also known as the Fort Berthold Reservation, which is under assault by oil companies, and where water and people are challenged not only by a pipeline, but also by a proposed refinery. The other two pipelines carry tar sands oil from the far north in the Athabascan River, a place that is beautiful and a place that deserves to live and not become a national sacrifice area. Athabascan River region is a pristine ecosystem, that is until the oil companies come that way. Thus far, 3% of that oil, considered because of its extraction method to be the dirtiest oil in the world, has been ripped from the ground. The boreal forests are being turned into sand dunes. Alberta has become the third largest oil producing state, aka nation, in the world. That oil is being extracted without infrastructure to move it. Hence the push for a pipeline, any pipeline. What's at stake is a lot of water and a lot of risk. In Minnesota, it's wild rice, water, and oil. The Enbridge pipeline is proposing to both expand present Alberta Clipper, doubling its capacity, and making it the largest tar sands pipeline in the United States. In the Dakotas, it is a land without a single pipeline across it and one large aquifer, the Oglala. The Enbridge Company also wants to construct a 610-mile pipeline from near Tioga, North Dakota, to Superior, Wisconsin. that would carry fracked oil. This is also the same oil as the 800,000 gallons which devastated a Tioga farm in North Dakota early in October. Farmer Stephen Jensen walked into his field and could smell the oil. It seeped for so long that 800,000 gallons devastated his field. That pipeline was 6 inches. The proposed Sandpiper line is 30. Enbridge's pipelines are largely monitored by the company. Those go through indigenous territories, which are healthy lands, lands that our ancestors wish to protect. We intend to do the same. The single largest pipeline oil spill in U.S. history was the Kalamazoo spill. The fact is that greed makes people act poorly. Rather than investing into efficiency, infrastructure, and renewable or safe energy, the push is to extract as quickly as possible, by any means necessary, and to move that oil by any means necessary. Right now, most of the oil moving in this country from the Bakken fields moves on railway. That's up to about 380,000 rail cars projected to move this year. This past summer, 4 square blocks of the town of Lac-Mégantic, Quebec, blew up as the train's braking systems failed. That train was carrying Bakken oil. Over 40 people were, quote, vaporized in an explosion which baffled Canadian authorities. They had never seen anything like it. That oil, combined with whatever chemicals are in it, is the stuff they want to put into the Sandpiper line. The fact is that all of these expansions are predicated not on need, but on greed. We think that need is subjective. In Enbridge's application to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, access to a, quote, stable supply of oil was the primary measure of need. It turns out that the world's largest oil reserves are in the Western Hemisphere, in Venezuela, followed by Saudi Arabia, and then the Alberta tar sands. Venezuela is a country that has demanded a fair price for oil and used that oil to develop its infrastructure. Instead of paying a fair price for oil, however, oil interests are far more interested in securing oil from places that do not wish to give up their oil.
Redskins race, the fighting Sioux, Eskimo pies and bread and tobacco. A billion insults to the map when we object, we're on the warpath. Struggles with racist laws and violence from Wounded Knee to Alcatraz Island, marching the trail of broken treaties, fishing rights and police beatings. Destroy the land and you will pay every investor waterway. Native heroes refuse parole. Stop and search by state patrol. Release our dead, return their bones, let us live, return our home.
Our people remain committed to protecting our land and water. This is what we were instructed to do by our ancestors, and that is our covenant with our ancestors and our Mother Earth. That is also our covenant with the generations yet to come. This is not just a Native issue, an Indigenous issue. It affects us all. Whether you have feet, wings, fins, or roots, we are all in this together. No corporation has a right to this land, water, and our future. This is Winona LaDuke for Honor the Earth.
Some things haven't changed at all. Resistance standing strong and tall. Like the red oak leaves.
Hi, I'm back. Thanks again for having me. I forgot. There's 2. Okay, now I'm back. Thanks for watching that. As you saw, that's a little broader than this discussion, but it still has very similar issues. It's kind of what happens when you have a pristine ecosystem that they want to put something in that you don't want. Do you have a right to say no? Which I think is really kind of the question we have here. And in this case, it is a question of if there is a need or if there's not a need, and what the risk is. in our feeling about this, to start with, I think it's important to say that while there may be 50% local hires for a project like this, those hires are for a period of 6 months. That's 1,500 people. The amount that a county like Hubbard County, Becker County makes on tourism, makes on the beautiful pristine lakes that we already have, is much higher. For those of us who have land in these counties, we think about things like our property taxes and our property values. You could get a easement payment from a company, but the fact is that over the long haul, the value of your land is going to be diminished because you have something as risky as a pipeline which crosses it. It is not going to be increased in value. It's going to decrease in value. And it is something that affects not only you as a landowner, but it's going to affect all of us. While we're all concerned about how they're going to move the oil, and we just saw the Castleton train disaster, you know, it's very disturbing. I know we're all disturbed by it because I drive through Detroit Lakes and I have to stop and watch those trains go by all the time. You know, a North Dakota legislator, a Republican, this week asked for a slowdown on what's going on out there because everything is moving so rapidly that they don't even have a full plan on how to move things. And so we're watching these trains go by, and it turns out that fracked oil is really, really volatile. It's not the same thing that moves in the tar sands. It's like a 13 in the index. Gasoline is about a 52 and fracked oil is about a 32. So a train with fracked oil is highly explosive, right? You put that in a pipeline, that can explode as well. While the company might say that, in fact, pipelines have less spills, when they have a spill, it's a lot larger. And the fact is that that's not true. Over the past decades, pipelines have spilled 474,000 barrels of oil, compared to 2,268 barrels spilled over the same time by rail. I know that there's a lot that moves through pipelines. There's also a lot that moves through railways. Pipelines also don't just contain the oil in it. There was a really horrible tragedy about 10 years ago where a pipeline blew up near the city of Bellingham. 2 boys were playing, the fumes went up. One boy went by the water. It went into a creek near Whatcom Creek, near Bellingham, Washington, and it went into the creek. The fumes overcame the boy and he drowned. But a couple of other lads were playing nearby and they had a butane lighter and they blew up this entire, thing. And it was just really lucky. It was tragic, but it blew up before it hit the town of Bellingham. Or it would have blown up about half of the town of Bellingham, right? These are the kind of choices that we're looking at. And the questions that I have are, why are we making these choices now? I am like you. I'm as addicted to oil as all of you. I drive around my big trucks, right? I prefer to ride a horse. That'd be great. Awfully cold today. I probably would have stayed home. I'm thinking I probably would just stay home more than I drive, frankly. We drive all over the place, and half the time I don't know why I'm driving. And I know you're all probably in the same canoe on that one. So you drive here, you drive there. We're all really heavily addicted to it. But that doesn't mean that we need to get our oil from such bad places and with such consequences. The Sandpiper in specific is a line that is intended to come from North Dakota, from the Bakken field. That is a really, really egregious extraction process that's occurring out there. And a lot of us, we live here and we say, oh, that's out there in North Dakota. That's far away and nobody really lives out there. I know you say it because I say it. And I'm like, oh, it must be really cold over there right now, right? Because we live here. But no one's going to be able to live there if they keep this up. The level of extraction is destroying water. There's 600 chemicals that are going into the land, you know, that is totally they don't have to, it's not regulated and it's unreported. Right? I was just reading an article in the Williston paper that there's 75 tons of radioactive and toxic drilling waste generated daily. And they don't have a disposal plan for it. Right? And then it's highly explosive. So part of the problem that I have with this is that's what they want to put in this line to come here. And while I understand some idea that we want to have, quote, domestic oil, this isn't the oil you want. And the reason I'm saying that is that if you look at the figures, there's about 2.65 billion barrels of oil in the Bakken. 2.65 billion barrels of oil in the Bakken. Underneath it, remember that other thing called the Three Forks or something, which is like halfway to China? Do you know what I'm talking about, or am I just too nerdy for y'all? All right, there's another maybe 3.73 billion barrels, right? The US consumes 6.8 billion barrels a year. Do you understand what I'm saying? The Bakken will feed our needs for half a year. 2.65 billion barrels of oil, and we're consuming 6.8 billion barrels a year. It's not going to solve our problems. And that's why I think the Sandpiper is particularly folly. Because why put in this massive oil infrastructure for something that would feed our needs for basically 6 months? And then you know what's going to happen, or my fears, are they run out of Bakken. They use it for more tar sands oil, which is so destructive. And then they add to that, and we end up with what they got up north. Because the reason that this entire southern route is proposed is because nobody wants it to go up north. They already have 6 pipelines going across the Leech Lake Reservation through national parks. And they said that's enough. Leech Lake Tribal Council said that's enough. So that's why they're here. They're not here because they're offering us a big favor of an economic boom. They're here because they don't have any friends along the other route, because they have spills that have not been cleaned up already. The company does not have a good record on spill cleanup. They have had over 800 spills. And there will be more spills in the future. So we have this chance here to say no. And I think that the choice of saying, do you want to drive a car with bad brakes or a car with bad steering is not a good choice to have. Maybe we just say we don't want to drive that car. And maybe we just say we don't want this pipeline here because it's not a good pipeline. So we have a lot of literature in the back on the table. And I know that she's going to give me the cane here in a second. In 1 minute. But, you know, I guess that those are really my concerns. I don't live somewhere else, and I'm not moving anywhere else. I'd like to keep a well. Wouldn't that be great? I'd like to know that when I'm on a lake, I can still eat the fish. And I don't think that short-term need is justified. And there is no need for that pipeline. There is no need to get the oil from here. As we said in the video, there's plenty of oil in the Western Hemisphere. There's 100 times more oil in Venezuela than in North Dakota. Maybe we could make nice. But at least we could just say no to this plan, because it's a short-term and very dangerous one. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Nathan Kessner. I'm with the Department of Natural Resources. I've been with the DNR for about 5 years. I'm stationed in Bemidji. On the drive down, I think I saw the temperature go from 10 below to 6 below, back down to 10 below. So it's all cold. Basically, the reason I'm here today is to provide information about DNR's role in the pipeline development project, the process. And then to answer questions. Also, what are some takeaways I hope you have? basically DNR, go back, okay. Hopefully, everyone will also go away with understanding, and know that DNR also does have some concerns. You'll get an idea of what those concerns are. Hopefully you'll understand that we've been engaged, and will be engaged throughout the entire development process. And then also to have an understanding of what your opportunities are, to have your concerns